Okay, one moment. Okay. Let me just turn the volume off on this and then, okay. So, got it. Okay, so we finished off last time. He explained to us the difference between what was, he was giving like the lashon of re'iyah for a deep understanding and the lashon of das for like a surface understanding. And he's moving on this idea now. And he started by telling us that this concept of das is the mafteach de kalil shis, right? It's like the key that opens up, or the key to the 6 other midos that we explained last week. That's talking about, the 6 spheros of chesed, gevurah, tiferes. That's a Achod Yesod. The idea is that the das is like the shefa that comes down and animates those midos, animates them, makes them function, makes them be mitpa'el, makes them, act. So he was about to get into something I said was like starting a whole new, like sort of like a big topic. So I'm going to show with the whiteboard again, just because it's easy to sort of explain this, what he's referring to over here. So, a new whiteboard. Okay, so like we saw last time that you have this concept of, there's the 10 spheros that you have, right? But we'll start again with Keser at the top. Oh, wow, this is like different now. It's not the same as it was. Wow, it's all okay. Interesting. Okay. I don't know how I have to do this each time now. Oh boy, that's like a whole it became like a graphics program now. Okay, so what we saw is that there's these this is gonna okay.
Maybe you press the pencil.
Oh, I see. Right. Okay, good. Got it. Okay, fine. Very good. Okay, so then you've got Keser, Chachma, and Bina, and then you have the okay, then Chesed, Gevurah, Tiferes, and as they go down, right? However, let's zoom in, right? Within every one, right? Within every one of those 10 spheros, you have your whole 10 spheros themselves, right? In other words, each one is made up of its own set of 10. So within this one Bina, we have the Keser of Bina, we've got the Chachma of Bina, we've got the Bina of Bina, right? And then the Chesed, the Gevurah, Tiferes, Netzach, Hod, Yesod, and the Malchus, all within Bina, right? All within that one sphera, you have that full set of 10. And it's like that, infinitely ad infinitum, meaning you can keep on zooming in and zooming in and zooming in. And it's like a fractal, you know what I mean? That every small thing looks like the big thing, and you could zoom in and zoom out, infinitely in every direction. So within Bina, we have the Midah of Yesod, right? Yesod within Bina is just like Yesod within any system. Yesod is the Midah that right before Malchus, it's the repository of all the Shefa. It's the place where all the Shefa comes right before it is given over to the Malchus. So that's the Midah of Yesod. Okay, so what he's explaining to us here is that within Bina is also sometimes referred to as Ima. Chachma and Bina are often referred to as Abba and Ima. They're like the parents, so to speak, of the whole system. We'll hopefully understand this more along the way. Now it's just like sort of introducing it in bits and pieces. But the idea that within, right, that we said the top 3 is the mochin, right? That's like the headspace, so to speak, of the system. So within Bina, we have this midas hayesod, and within yesod, you always have with every midah, you always have the panim and the achor of that midah. You have like the front of the midah and sort of the back of the midah. When it's panim, that's when the midah is giving in a very straightforward, facing way. When it's achor, that's like when you give something behind your back, it's still giving. You're still giving over the shefa, but it's in a lower level. That's like what he told us earlier. He's going to be getting back to this concept of the achorayim, right? That he told us that the lashon, that targum is like the achorayim of lashon hakodesh, right? Whereas Lashon HaKodesh expresses things in a straightforward, clear way. So Targum is like the Acharayim, it's like the back of it. It's like, it's the same idea, it's the same language, but it's on a lower level. That's what the concept of Acharayim is. Okay, so with all of this, hopefully, what he explains now, we're on the fourth word on the line, about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 lines down. That's what we're seeing right now. So he's saying that the shoresh of this lower level of emunah, meaning the place where the shefa that brings this level of emunah into the world, it starts whenever he's talking about these midos of Abba and Ima, he's talking about within the world of Atzilus. Atzilus is like the highest spiritual level. It goes Atzilus, Bria, Yetzira, and Asiya. Those are like the 4 worlds. So within Atzilus, that's like the place where these midos are. So in Ima, which is Bina of Atzilus, within Midas HaYesod, and the Acharayim of that Midas HaYesod, that's the shoresh of this emunah, meaning where our ability to grasp Hashem on this level, so that starts at that place, what's called, the Acharayim, the Yesod Ima. Okay, so let's see if we can understand this now, if I close the whiteboard. Okay, so the shoresh of this level of understanding of Hashem, Nimshach me'acharayim the Yesod Ima. That's where it comes from. It starts from that place in the Olam of Atzilus, in the Midas HaYesod of Ima, but the Acharayim of it. Ukamotion is bar la'el, shalagabe hasagas hamalhus, eno ela bechinas Acharayim bilvad. Right? Again, that if it would be like the Pnim, that would be a much deeper understanding. To see Hashem, to understand Hashem, if the Shefa was coming from the Nim, from the front, so to speak, of Yesod Ima, so then our Hasaga, our understanding of Hashem would be much, much more powerful and much deeper. But because it's only coming from the Bechina of Acharayim, it's coming from that lower level revelation, Shuhurak Yedias HaMetzios Levad. Right? It's not that deep understanding, it's just a knowledge of the Metzias. Ulefi shekoach hahavana hu lahavin mahus hadavar imkein koach hayediah shal Metzias hu bechinas acharayim shelo levad. Right? So again, he's just explaining this idea that the 2 levels of understanding something. There's the pnimius, which is like the deep understanding, and then the acharayim, which is like the lower level of understanding. And that's again, Shezesod Echazeh Eloka, Commotion is Bar Le'el. Like he said earlier, it didn't say Mibsari Roa Eloki, I see Hashem, because that would mean I really understood Hashem. No, so we can't really understand Hashem. We could only at best Echazeh, which is the Achorayim of seeing, like the lower level of seeing, which is this knowing of Da'as. Amnam Ha'emuna hi Hanikres Atara Bisvarim. Right? Emuna is that's on a higher level. That's like the crown. Kihi kamashal ha'atara bebechinas makif levad al harosh ve'eno nichnas bepnimiuso. Okay, so again, the idea of there's different types of shefa that come from Hashem. He gave this idea earlier. He told us the difference between Sovev Kol Almin and Mamali Kol Almin in the first class, right? The first time we learned the concept of Sovev, that Hashem is, sort of around everything, right? But that's sort of like on the outside of it. And then he's Mamali Kol Almin, that he fills it on the inside, right? So the filling on the inside, that Hashem fills the world, that's something that we just know, right? But the fact that Hashem is also Sovev Kol Almin, that's the Emunah, that's the deeper level. That's what we have to believe in that. We don't know that, we don't see that. That's like the crown, where the crown is makif, it's on the outside. Right? The concept of makif and sovev are identical. Bebechinas makif levad al harosh ve'ero nichnas bepnimiuso. Right? This concept of something that's sovev, something that's a makif, that's on the outside, so it doesn't go on the inside. Ve'ena midos mispael mimena lefi shehi bebechinas richuk. Right? As opposed to, again, the das, which goes into the midos, and the midos are affected by it. They are mispoiled by it, right? Emuna is not like that. Emuna is on the outside. Emuna remains as a makif. It remains as a belief in Hashem that He's out there. but it doesn't go inside and make things happen. So he's quoting here a Gemara. The Gemara tells us that you can have a ganaf, even a ganaf, or a thief that is on the door of his machteres, meaning he's about to break into a house and rob the house. And above the machteres, the Gemara says that's a person, we're allowed to kill him because he has a din of a rodef, because if he's coming into my house, I might protect my money. If I protect my money, he might attack me, and therefore I have a right to kill him. So Mamish talking about a potential murderer, but the Gemara says, Ganva apum machtarta rachmanakari, that people, a ganav, even a ganav who's about to commit his crime, he also davens to Hashem, right? Meaning like he davens to Hashem for hatzlacha. So he's saying, well, how can that be? The vomer Rabbonu Shalom Hoshieni, right? The ganav davens to Hashem and davens for Hashem to save him. Right, but how could that be? What do you mean? Like, how can you believe in Hashem enough that you're asking for His hatzlacha, but then you're going and doing an avera? Like, how could you do that? But he explains this. Harei shemaimin biyacholis Rabbonu Shalom. He does believe in Hashem. He has emunah, but that emunah is only a sovev. It's a makif. It doesn't go inside. It doesn't affect him. It doesn't affect what he does. Right. So it's not going to stop him from stealing, even though he believes in Hashem. Harei shemaimin biyacholis Rabbonu Shalom va'afal pichein osa ma'isa limrod bo. He believes in Hashem so much so that he's praying to him, and still he's going to go ahead and rebel against him. Because the Okay, so he said this in a sort of complex way, but the idea, I think you caught it, right? That sometimes you can have a belief in something. It's a true belief, we believe it, but it's not on the inside. It doesn't affect us. It doesn't go into us and make us act based on that belief. It's just there. It's sort of like a background. So that's emunah as opposed to das. Das is when it's inside. I know Hashem is there, and that knowledge affects me. It affects my midos. It affects how I function. Okay. So far, so good?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Okay, ukamo kain. So too, if we understand this difference and this, the distinction, yuvan ha'inyan lamayla shebechinas netzach hod yesod dezer anpin mochin lenukva ubiyesod melubash moach hadas hanimshach medas de abba v'ima. Okay, hanimshach medas atik yomin v'arachampen. Okay, so this is like there's a lot of Kabbalah over here, but it's really all the same idea. I'm not going to go through and explain each one of the pieces that he just explained over here, but he's basically saying that it works like this in all of the systems. I'll show you again on the whiteboard. The way that it works. Okay, open the board. Okay, yeah, they might have changed this up since the last time. Okay, so here I'll use the pen. Okay, so the way it works is you have, like, I'll do it a little bit smaller this time. But again, okay, we'll make our 10, Keser, Chachma, Bina, Chesed, Gevura, Tiferes in the middle, Netzach, Hod, Yesod, and Malchus. Okay, so it's not so well broken up so well, but okay. But in every level, like we already said before, the top three, that's like the mochim, that's like the kavana. These six, right? We said the six. This is like the action. This is like the plan. This is where things happen. Chesed, Gevura, Tiferes, Netzach, Hod, Yesod, and Malchus is giving over to the next level, right? But already from Netzach, already from starting from this level, right? Like this triple, this Netzach, Hod, Yesod, that triple. So already from there, that's already like the Shefa getting ready for the next Madrega down. Right? Meaning, like, if you understand like the way the system works, so in the top, the first three is where everything happens theoretically, right? Where it's sort of theoretically worked out. You know what? Let's do this more systematic. Let's do this more properly. Let me see if I could clear this whiteboard and do it again. Okay. How do I erase it? Oh, cool. Okay, fine. Good. Excellent. Okay, good. Okay.
Chabad.org has like a great sheet with what you're trying to draw. Maybe next time, maybe I'll send it to you, and this way you can kind of just bring it up. And
okay, yeah, great. So yeah, maybe let's do that. Yeah, there's a lot of I didn't think to do that. That's a good idea. Okay, so let's just go through to understand the 10 in general. Let's just try to understand it. I think as we go further down, this will help. So even though it'll take a few minutes now, but I think this will help as we go further. So I just want to give sort of like an overview of all 10 of the midos and how they're broken up, and to sort of get a clear understanding. So it's going to be used more and more as we go. We're going to use the construction of a building as our mashal, just because that's an easy way to picture something. So let's think about all the parts that are involved in making a building. Well, the first thing is you need a ratzon, you need a will, right? You have to want something to begin with, right? Why do you even want to start building a building? So you have a ratzon to have somewhere to live. Right, so that's where it starts with. It starts with what we call with a ratzon, right? A will for anything to be at all. So that ratzon is where everything starts. That's what we see in the midah of keser. In the midah of keser, I'll just write a chaf here. In the midah of keser, that's where the concept of the ratzon is. It's not even a reality yet. It's not even a real thing, right? The ratzon is just what we want to happen, but it's not anything yet. Okay, after the ratzon, the next step is the idea, right? The ratzon is I want a place to live. The idea is, so I should have a house, a building, right? A construction. I should have a structure. So in that idea already is really everything that's going to be in the future, but it's in a very, very, very compact form, right? It's in a very concentrated form. It's just the idea of everything that's going to be, but it's not fleshed out. It's not made practical in any which way. It's just the idea. The idea is chachma. Okay, that's what we call chachma, or again, we said Abba sometimes that's referred to, but that's the idea of the plan. The next step, what do? If you have an idea of a building, is now you have to bring it to the architect, right? You have to bring it to somebody who's going to actually take that idea, and not in reality yet, because we're not ready to start putting together pieces of wood and concrete and pipes, but we first have to lay out where all that wood and concrete and pipes is going to go, right? So that's like the adrichalit, the architect of the system. That's bina, right? That's an ima or bina, the mother or bina, and that's like the masculine and feminine role, right? Chachma is the masculine side and bina is the feminine side. And you see this even with a husband and wife, right? In the production of a child, right? From the masculine side is everything, but in a very, very concentrated form, right? That's given over to the woman, and then inside the woman over 9 months, right? It's all fleshed out in potential. Right? It's not born yet. It's not it's not like in actuality yet, right? But the woman takes that one concentrated idea, that piece of chachma, right? And with the bina being maven davar mitoch davar, right? Being able to understand deeper and deeper. But that's the koach of bina, is to take that concentrated idea and flesh it out completely, but still only in potential, right? Because again, up here is the mochin. This is like the head of the system. So even in Bina, when everything is fully fleshed out and formed, it's only fleshed out and formed in potential, right? In what it could be, but not yet in reality. Okay, the next system is going to be the worker, right? The poel, the kablan, right? The kablan is going to then go ahead and take the plans from the architect and make the thing, make the house. That's going to happen with the 6 midos of chesed, gevura, and tiferes. Those first 3 are the kablan, so to speak, saying, what are my capabilities? What are my limitations? And then tiferes is, okay, what when I put together those 2, what is that going to yield? And then netzach, hod, and yesod is the same idea, but getting it ready for the mekabel. What can the recipients have? What are his limitations? And then Yesod is like the balance between those 2. And Yesod is also, like we said before, Yesod is like the repository for all of the Shefa, right? All of the Shefa before it's passed on to the next level, to what we call Malchus, right? It all waits over there in Yesod, right? So Yesod is sort of like the repository for all of the Shefa that's going to happen. And then finally, number 7 is Malchus, and Malchus is the house, right? Malchus is the end result, right? So if we take this whole idea, one of the ways that this is expressed is with the Shem Hashem, okay? With the Shem Hashem, the first letter is Yud, right? So Yud has first the Kutzo Shel Yud, right? The tip of the Yud, which is barely there. The Kutzo Shel Yud, that's Keser. That's considered to be Keser. It's barely here. It barely has any representation in the real world. But the Yud is everything, but it's all concentrated. It's a dot, right? A Yud is one dot. That's all of everything that's going to be there, but the Yud represents Chachma. The Yud represents the Chachma. It represents everything, but it's all concentrated in one dot. The Hey of the Shem Hashem, right? The Hey, the first Hey, that represents Bina, right? Because at the end, we're going to end up with a Hey also, but the Hey at the end is the actual Hey. The Hey of Bina, this is the Hey in potential, right? This is like the architectural plan for the final Hey. But a Hey, right, you notice is made up of a Dalid, right, and a Vav, which is 10, right? Because within the Hey is really all 10 of the spheros, right? That's the structure of all of them is in the Hey, but over here, it's only in potential. Next we have is Vav. Vav is the letter 6, right? Because it represents the 6 midos, Chesed, Gevura, Tiferes, Netzach, Hod, and Yesod. Vav also is in the Hebrew language, it's the letter that connects things, vi, right? It connects two things, something vi, something else, and, right? The Vav is the connector because these 6 midos, right? These are the connector between the mochin and the reality, right? What makes the idea happen and be brought out into the world is the 6, the Vav, the connector. Right? It's also Vav, like a pipeline, a connector, right? It connects from the top to the bottom, like even the letter Aleph is 2 Yuds and a Vav, right? Like a Yud and a Vav and a Yud, like connecting the Shemaim and the Aretz, right? But a Vav is always a connector, and the Vav in the Shem Hashem represents these Vav, these 6. And then finally, the Hey Tata, the lower Hey, right? That is Malchus, right? And that's the actual Hey, right? That's the actual 10, the actual Dalet and Vav, whereas before it was in potential, right? When it comes out in Malchus, it is in reality. Okay, so this is like the 10 are really broken up into 5 stages. You have the Ratzon, the idea, and the plan, right? That's the Mochin, that's Keser, Chachma, and Bina, the Ratzon, the idea, and the plan. Then you have the 6 all working together. That's like the action. And then you've got the bottom, the 5th, and that is Malchus, which is bringing it out into being. So there's a number of ways in which these are broken up. Sometimes it's divided up as 3 and 7, right? Like the 3 on top and the 7 lower. Sometimes it's broken up into 1, 2, 3, sometimes broken up into 5, and sometimes broken up into 10, but they're all different ways of breaking up the same system in the same way of understanding of having the Shefa go from layer and level to the next level below it. Okay, but if we look at this and we sort of will overlay this over the next olam, over the next level, right? So the Netzach and the Hod and the Yesod of this Madrega, right, is going to become the Chachma, Bina, and Das of the next Madrega down, right? Meaning if this is, if the higher Olam is, or let's say like we saw before that, right? Within each of these 10, there's 10, right? Which each one there's 10, and each one feeds into the lower level. So if this is like, let's say the whole system of Chachma, right? So this is going to feed into Bina. So Bina is going to start over here, right? And Bina is going to sort of like be superimposed over Chachma so that the bottom 3 levels of Chachma are like the top 3 levels of Bina. Okay, you understand what I mean by that? Mm-hmm. Right? So we're at, I'm sorry?
Yeah.
Okay, excellent. Okay, so that's really what he's explaining right now. What he's explaining right now is that this section is called Ze'er Anpin, I'm not going to get the vav, right? Those 6 which represent this is called ze'er anpin, and malchus is called the nukva, the female, the feminine, because again, just like here is a male and female counterpart, so also here, but vertically, this is the male and female counterpart of the worlds going in this way, right? In other words, like there's 2 males and 2 females that are sort of represented here. Chachma and Bina is one male-female couple, and then these 6 midos and malchus, which is also referred to as ze'er anpin and nukva. Ze'er anpin means a short face, and nukva is the woman, right? So that's another couple of male and female. So that's what he's explaining over here. Let's just try to see this now inside. That I think you'll see what he's saying here. Let me. I'll leave this on because we'll explain it. But yeah, right? So if we're looking at the midah of Zer Anpin and we take his netzach and hod and yesod, right? They are mochin lanukva, right? They make up the chachma, bina, and das of the next level down, which is the nukva, the woman, the malchus. Ubiyesod melubash moach hadas. So this piece right here, right, that is yesod of chachma, that is das. I'm sorry, yesod of Ze'er Anpin, yesod of that midah. So that becomes das of the midah below it. Correct? Keser is up here, but das would be over here, which is superimposed over or over yesod of the level on top of it. Hanimshach mid das the abba ve'ima, and that das ultimately comes from abba and ima, right? Because this shefa is coming from up there. Hanimshach mid das atik yomin v'arach yamin arach anpin. Those are 2 parts of keser. Keser itself is split in half. There's a higher part and a lower part, atik yomin and arach anpin. So, right, he's just basically saying that the shefa goes all the way from the top. Ki yadua, v'hu bechinas gilui or ein sof baruchu bedas, ubechinas pnimias umimidas malchusu yisbarach shehi mekor neshamus Yisrael meir ha'aras das ze lechol nefesh mi Yisrael leda es Hashem. Okay, so after explaining all of this, I'm going to shut this off in 1 second, this chart, and we're finished with this. But basically, he's saying that the place at which the shefa comes in from Hashem that gives us the ability to know Hashem is here in the world. So this is the trail of that shefa. But because the whole thing starts at the acharayim of Yesod Ima, it starts at like a lower place, right? It doesn't start from the higher place. So that's why we don't know the Sovev Kol Almin, right? We don't have that connection to Sovev Kol Almin like we do to the Mamali Kol Almin, because the Shoresh of Aramuna starts at that lower place. Okay, and Kidichsiv la'avas Hashem lokecha ki hu chayecha. V'avazu shorish l'kiyum ramach mitzvos kamosha adam oy v'chavetz lasos dvarim hamuchrachim l'kiyum nafsho v'gufo. Okay. Let's see where the sentence is. Kacha v'yosef michein yachvotz lasos mitzvos Hashem sheim kiyum amshachas gilu elkus v'olmos sheim chaim amitim. So again, this idea, the fact that this shefa comes to us, I'm turning off the board. The shefa that comes to us, he's explaining the trail, like how it goes down from the higher worlds, but that's what gives us this understanding, this knowledge that we know that and that we have this ratzon to do the ratzon Hashem and to keep the mitzvos, to do these things. That's v'chein yira v'yirchak min alos hasei, and our natural keeping away from doing averos, sheim davar mazik l'kiyum chiyuzeh, kemo she'adam soni mazik l'nafsho uboreach mimenu kimetrei v'kashes. Right, just like we stay away from things that are dangerous to us, right? So we stay away from averos. V'chol toldos elu shebebidos hu mehadas dafka. V'nikra avtecha v'shorsho midas shenimshach b'malchus da'atzilus shehu bebechinas pnimius ba'kanal. Okay, so again, he's just saying this whole thing. If you got all the details or not, the point is that the knowledge that we have of Hashem, and that knowledge that is, like he says, that it's a form of das that's inside of us, and that affects our midos, it affects the way we do things. And that's that das of Hashem, that das that Hashem is in the world, that he exists, that he's here. And that's something that we don't need emuna to come onto that. The emuna is the higher level. Emuna is the belief in the sovev kol almin, and that again doesn't make us do anything. What makes us do stuff is this das that we know that Hashem is in the world, and therefore we are driven to do the mitzvos and to stay away from the averos. Okay, we just said masha'ein kain ha'emuna. Right, as opposed to emuna, sharsha bebechinas keser. So emuna, the shoresh is from a higher place, right? Keser is higher up from there. Malchus, I'm not sure. Shehu bebechinas makif, v'sovev ala malchus, u'masha meir mizeh b'chol nefesh emunas elokus. Harei emuna zu hi gam kein makif levad ka'atara shelamayla mehamochin. Right, so this emuna is on a higher place. It's makif. It's like on the outside. Ve'eno nichnas b'pnimiyusam liftoach hamidos. That's not what comes into a person and makes their midos operate. V'chein amar da es Elokei avicha. The Torah tells us, know Hashem your father. Da daika specifically uses that lashon da. No, the hainu shekol mashatucha lahagia elokuso yisbarach bebechinas das tishtadol bazeh. Make your knowledge of Hashem das, right? Not emuna. Don't have it be this concept of emuna, which is this amorphous, abstract thing that's on the outside. No, turn your belief in Hashem into das. Tishtadol bazev ta'amik machshavtacha v'hainu yedias mitziuso. Make it into das, that it's in your system, that it makes you, it not motivates you, but it animates you, right? Let that das be what animates you. V'shehu chaye hachayim kinizkar la'el, right? This is true life. Va'az tapoch leish acher. That's what turns you into a different person. Ki yiftachu midosecha la'avas Hashem v'liyira oso. Right, when a person allows the das to go into his system, that's what brings him to ava and yira. Ki adas hu hamafteach, because that's the key, like we said earlier. Al yidei hargasha zu kenizkar la'el, like we said earlier, that feeling that comes in from the das. Amnam ma she'i efshar la'agia bo b'chinas das, something that you can't get to the level of das. Henichu al ha'emuna lahamin bo emuna shlema. Then at least we have to have that level of emuna, right? It's not as penetrating, it's not as affecting, right? But at least we should have that emuna. Right? Whatever we can grasp and know, that's das, that we just know. Whatever we can't, that's emuna. V'shoreh zeh hu bechinas ha'aras ha'keser shebemalchus shesharsho mikeser elyon shelamayla me'achachma v'nikra sovev kol almin. So again, he's saying this concept that it comes from a higher place, emuna. It comes from keser, which is on the outside. That's this idea of sovev kol almin. Shenyano hu bechinas gilui ha'lokus shelamayla meseichel v'hasaga. Kamashi is bar, okay, and that's this idea of this concept of emuna that's outside of our seichel, l'maylam in our seichel. If it's in our seichel, that's already part of our das. That's already in our system. That's already a part of us. But emuna, that's what's on the outside. That's this concept of sovev kol almin, and it doesn't penetrate and enter into our system. Okay, so far so good.
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, so va'ata yisbar das monei mitzvos shenechelku bazeh. So now I'm going to explain, now that we really have a much deeper understanding about these two different levels, these two aspects of knowledge of Hashem, right? So now we're going to go back to that original discussion that we started with in the discussion of what exactly is the mitzvah of emunah versus what's not a mitzvah and what we just supposed to know beforehand. So now let's try to understand that. Va'ati yisbar das monei mitzvos shenechelku bazeh im yimona zeh b'minyan mitzvos im lav. So now we'll understand better that they argued over this, whether to include this in the mitzvos or not. V'das bahag, according to the bahag, shelefi sheikar inyan zeh the ideas halokus hu musag v'nirgash kanal. Since this idea is so obvious, it's so basic, it's so built in, it's not something we believe. Im kein lo yitachen tzivoy al zeh. Right, so something that we would know based on his description of das, right? Something that we would know from das. It doesn't make sense to make a mitzvah out of that, because that, it's part of you. It's something that you know, and it's not something you have a choice in to believe or not believe. That's like saying, do you believe you're alive? You don't choose to believe you're alive. You know you're alive. O im bedeos o machshava v'dibur lachshov o lo lachshov. Ladaber o lo ladaber, lasos o lo lasos, right? That's what bechira is for. Mitzvahs are for things you could choose to do, choosing to do something or not, thinking something or not, saying something or not. Aval davar hamurgash v'nir la'ayin ma yitachin tzivu yalzeh largisho lomno b'hargish achar shemurgash. How can there be a mitzvah to feel something, or to know something? It's it. Either you know it or you don't know it. You feel it or you don't feel it. You can't make it a mitzvah to feel it. If you feel it, you do, and if you don't, a mitzvah is not going to change that. We see the world is alive from the source of all life. Like we said earlier, Parak Aleph. That's why he didn't count it as one of the mitzvos. So all of those who did count it as a mitzvah, ta'amam, why? What's their rationale? It's not just to know that Hashem is there, but it's to make yourself know it. Make yourself think about it. Like he just said earlier, right? The difference between Emunah and Das is when you can contemplate something and bring it into your system by contemplating and thinking about it. So that's the mitzvah. The mitzvah is to contemplate and let into my system the concept of Hashem. Because even if I know something, if I don't think about it and I let myself be distracted, lo yoil klum, it doesn't help. That's like the ganva abe machtarta, right? That's the ganav who's davening at the entrance to the house. He believes in Hashem, but he doesn't bring it into himself, so it doesn't affect him. Lo yoel klum vafilu shiachshav zos b'machshava v'hirhu levad eno klum. Just thinking it is not enough. You have to get it into you deeply. V'oz yiftechu hamidos. That's how das can then affect our midos. That's what the Torah means. Know this and bring it into your heart. But then there's more than that. There's the one is bringing it into your das, but there's also a tzivui to believe what's above our das, like we said earlier. Right, to believe in Hashem, but like he said before, not that Hashem exists, that's obvious, but to believe that Hashem is lamayla min hachachma, right, to believe that Hashem is that entity that's so higher up. He included two things in this, the Rambam. One is shehem yedias mitziuso hanoda bedas v'gam ha'emuna bo v'hem mitzvah echad lahasim daito al zeh. So the Rambam makes it into one thing, right? One is to have that, both of them, right? Both, like we said, mamale and soviv, both aspects are part of the mitzvah of emuna. The aspect of the chiyus of it, that it's inside, well, that's the mitzvah of the adata and hashevos elovecha. I have to focus on this. I have to think about it. It's not enough just to let it be on my mind. I have to really be ma'amik in this, to bring that emuna into my system so that it will affect me. And also, I have to have that second aspect of emuna, that the Hashem is l'mayla min haseichel, right? That's v'hem mitzvah achad, l'hasim daito al zeh v'gam lahamin kanal, right? So that there's two things that are part of the mitzvah according to the Rambam. But Rebbe Yonah also is shtei mitzvos. Rebbe Yonah actually took that concept and actually broke it into two. Mitzvahs ha'emuna mi pasuk anochi, one mitzvah to believe from the pasuk anochi Hashem, mitzvahs hadas mi pasuk v'yadata hayom. Right, that second mitzvah of the deeper level of affecting emuna, that's from v'yadata hayom. So either which way, he's saying there's three things, right? There's the knowledge of Hashem filling the world. That's basic. Nobody holds that that's a mitzvah. There's bringing that knowledge into your heart. That's part of the mitzvah, according to the Rambam and Rabbeinu Yonah. And then it's a question whether it's part of the same mitzvah or a separate mitzvah, then to also have the emunah in Hashem in that higher form that he's sovev kol almin also. Okay, Rabbeinu Yonah is shtei mitzvos. Mitzvos emunah mi pasuk anochi, mitzvos hadas mi pasuk v'yadata hayom v'amar v'zel hashono This is what Rabbeinu Yonah writes. Umailas hisbonin begadlusi yisbarach kamash kasa v'yadata nimsru lanu b'mitzvos aseh. V'chein pasak b'sefer acharedim mishmo. V'zeh shekas v'chinuch leida v'lahamin sheyesh aloka ratzalom mashe efshe leida yeda daika u'mashe efshe leida yamin. Right, like the Rambam. Okay, so what he's seeing over here, just to sum up until now, so he tells us is basically three aspects. There's three aspects when it comes to emunah and knowledge and all of these things. There's the one which we're calling das, which is something that we just know. There's some bechira that is involved in that we can't be told to feel something or to know something. However, we can be mizbonen on information that lets us know something and feel something. So that's part of the mitzvah of emunah. And then the third aspect is the aspect of that sovev kol almin, right? The Hashem is l'mayla from everything that he's calling, emunah. And that concept of emunah is also part of the mitzvah. According to Rabbeinu Yonah, these are two separate mitzvos. The adata is one, and this concept of emunah is a second one. According to the Rambam, these are two aspects, both of one mitzvah, which is the mitzvah of emunah in Hashem. But again, according to everybody, just knowing Hashem exists, that concept of Hashem, existing, that's not part of the mitzvah. That's something that precedes all the mitzvahs. Okay, good. We're good.
Yeah.
Okay, excellent. Okay, we'll stop over here. Okay. And we'll try again this week, Hashem. We'll see if we could pick it up again. Okay.
Yeah, that'd be great. Thank you so
much.
Awesome.
Have a great week. I'll see you.